Hello, everybody, and welcome to Starting Your Business, Increase Your Chances of Success. This is Module 1, and my name is George McAllister for the Small Business and Technology Development Center, otherwise known as the SBTDC. Today, we're going to learn how to make better informed decisions in creating a successful business. Throughout the presentation, I am going to be covering material in our business startup and resource guide. You can find this guide on our website. It's free of charge and you can download it at any time. It's not necessary to have this guide present while we're doing the discussion here. However, some people find it's useful to have it so they can take notes as we go forward. Of course, the choice is yours. Today, we're going to go over 3 things in this module. First, we want to assess yourself as a potential business owner. Again, what does it take? Do you have the right stuff? Secondly, determine concept feasibility for your idea. And lastly, we're going to examine critical issues and make important decisions that relate to the startup phase of your business. Okay, let's get started. Personal characteristics. Now, most people do not have the skills, experience, and knowledge necessary to start a business. That is typically not the case. However, what you do need to know is what your skills and limitations are. That way, you have the ability to hire folks that can fill in for what limitations you may have and boost up your team. So it's an awareness issue more than anything else. Are you self-disciplined and independent? Since you're going to be managing yourself, you have to make sure that everything you do goes towards the growth and development of the company. 2 things to be aware of. First of all, be careful of procrastination. Again, no one's supervising you. Secondly, make sure you stay focused. Very important to stay focused. You're going to get a lot of distractions coming your way. You've got to make sure you stay focused. Secondly, do you thoroughly plan projects from start to finish? A lot of people will start a project for the project of the week, project of the day. It never gets done, and they move on to something else. Happens a lot. I had a client one time at a manufacturing facility, and he was always starting projects. He would think of them over the weekend, come in Monday morning, here's a project for the week. Problem was, they never got done. It was pulling the employees away from the day-to-day activities, which they hated because their work was piling up. Little was getting done in the company. And then after a while, the employees realized these projects don't mean anything because they never get completed. So therefore, they started not finishing the projects, did not get their work done, and the company started deteriorating. Luckily, with our help, we were able to sort of help them turn it around. But it was a lot of work that really didn't need to be done. Are you confident? Confidence is very important. Your employees want to make sure that their jobs are secure, the company has a long and bright future, and your confidence will support that fact. However, confidence does not mean being inflexible. You have to be flexible. The only constant is change in business, and you have to be aware of what's going on around you and be open to change the company and make whatever modifications need to be done in order to make sure that you're successful over the long term. Okay, next, personal demands of owning your own business. I cannot stress this a lot. This is very important. What happens to a lot of entrepreneurs is that they think everything's great, they're excited, they're pumped up, they're ready to get this business off the ground and running, and they think everybody around them feels the same way. Not always the case. Also, unlike what you hear in the media, starting a business does not mean you can work when you want to, work where you want to, and do what you want to do in your job. That is not the case when you're getting a business up and off the ground. It is long hours. You need to be prepared for those long hours. Secondly, can your finances handle uncertain income? In the media, you'll hear a lot of people talk about be a business owner and be wealthy overnight. It's not the case. You're going to find that You're going to need money to keep the business going until it reaches break even. And we don't really know exactly how much money that's going to be. You'll have projections to sort of give you guidance, but it's very tough to be totally accurate on that. Thirdly, is your family on board? Very, very important, because you need to make sure that your family is enthusiastic or understands the issues, how this business startup is going to impact them. Be sure to ask for their thoughts. Discuss it with them. Don't discuss it with them once. Do it throughout the process. This is very, very important. You want to make sure your support group around you is supporting you. I always ask business owners after they've been up and running for 6, 9, 12 months to share with me some of their experiences and some of the things that they have encountered that they didn't expect. And so I would say 2 things come up on a regular basis. The first one is things take longer to accomplish than anticipated. Things take a lot longer. They always say that, always. Second thing is it costs more than they anticipated, which you need to be careful of, because if you're starting a business and you determine it's going to take all your capital to start this business, be very careful, because more likely than not, it's going to take more money than you expect. So be careful. Let's talk about the business experience. Okay, do you have management experiences? Most people do not, and that's okay. You have a wealth of information from the perspective of employee. Think back on any manager that you've had. What were the good and bad qualities? Have you ever said to yourself, if I were the manager, I would have done it this way? Okay? Now's your chance. You are. Be careful though. You've got to get this right. And what I find is that most business owners do not spend enough time developing their staff. Don't make the same mistakes. Reflect back on your work background and bring some of those interactions you've had and discussions you've had with managers to help you in the way you manage your folks. Very important. Secondly, are you familiar with the industry? I know this sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised the number of people who are not. This is something you have to research and make sure that you know what's going on in the industry. Because if you don't, you're at a major disadvantage. Because I promise you, your customers know about the industry, and you need to know what they know about the industry and how they're making their purchasing decisions. Do you understand business financing, accounting practices, and financials? Very, very important. As I mentioned earlier, business financing, the chances are you're going to need to borrow money or get money from outside. More than likely, you're going to run out of money. That's okay. It happens with most businesses, but you need to be prepared to know the sources of funding. Now, we're going to go over this in greater detail in one of the later modules, but that is something to be aware of, because you do not want to have this scenario, and we hear it all the time. Get a phone call Monday, Tuesday, someone says, George, need your help. Sure, how can I help you? I need $20,000 to meet payroll this Friday. Little late to be looking for $20,000. And if I don't get the payroll, then my employees are going to get upset and half of them won't show up the next Monday. What do I do? We need to think about that a little bit earlier. So be prepared and have that in your bag of tools. Secondly, accounting practices and financials. Also important, you need to know basic accounting principles and how to read your financials, because they tell you the health of your company. They tell you what's going on. It is almost impossible to know what is going on in your company if you cannot read the financials. Key thing to know. Who is going to be doing the sales in your company? If you're not selling, who is? You've got to make sure that sales are being done. And in most cases, during the startup and growth phase, you do not have enough money to hire a sales force, you are the primary salesperson. Let's talk about determining concept feasibility for your business. First thing is, what problem are you solving and how? I will tell you, if you're not solving a problem, you do not have a business. A business must solve a problem. Very important. You have to be able to articulate that clearly. Secondly, can you clearly describe your product or service? Sounds pretty basic, but you would be surprised how much trouble people have describing what they do. It's either they're talking more about how it works, the old saying, don't tell me how the watch works, give me the time. It's very detailed, it may be esoteric, has to be clearly understood. I had a restaurant client, and he had a restaurant concept. He was going to serve sassy, in your face, Southern urban blue collar home cooking. What's that? I have no idea. But that's his product. It never got off the ground, but again, what can I say? Be careful. Be able to describe what's going on here. Who is your competition and why? Here's another big issue. We hear a lot of people say, I don't have any competition. Wrong. We all have competition. Whatever problem you're solving is currently being solved some way. Now, the current solution may take longer than your solution. It may be more expensive. It may be more complicated. It may not do as good a job as your solution, but there is a solution. So do not say you do not have competition. There is competition. It's also important to understand competition because I've made this comment before. Your customers know your competition. They're shopping you on a regular basis, so you need to know what they know. Very important. Next, how are you going to compete? How are you going to compete with your competition? It doesn't have to be something big and glorious. Little things work. It can be something small. I had a client who was going to open up a residential cleaning service. And she talked to several homeowners in the area in which she wanted to operate her business. And she was asking them what their issues were in choosing someone to clean their house. Well, one of the things that came up quite regularly was being on time. She never expected that, but apparently that's a problem in the industry, in this little community. So she thought about it, and what she did was to differentiate herself from all the other residential cleaning services in her area. She offered a $1 a minute discount off her fees for every minute she was late. Her customers felt confident that she was not going to be late because of that cost, and it made her be cognizant of the fact of being late, and she was really never late and wasn't a big issue, but it set her apart from the competition. Nothing big. It doesn't have to be something that is going to show up on a newscast or anything. But we're looking at different features. What features are unique that you can offer? Like I just mentioned, location, quality of your product, any protection or regulations that might be in place that can help you have a niche in the business, and price. I think what you need to look at more than anything else is value. Let's look at the value I'm delivering. I'll give you an example. I had a client who manufactured vinyl replacement windows. He had the least expensive windows on the market. He was having a problem selling them. Why? He had the lowest price. Problem was, the homeowners were nervous because they were wondering how long these windows were going to last. Secondly, they were voicing a concern because they wondered if they were going to be very energy efficient. Okay. The installers who would install these windows did not like them because it took a significant amount of time to install the windows compared to other brands. So they were spending more time putting these windows in than other windows. So what happened to the homeowner, any savings in the windows that the homeowner saw was going into the additional labor to put them in. So therefore, there was no advantage there. He had a major problem. We worked with him and helped him understand what was going on in the market, looking beyond his windows. He was just focusing on his windows and not what was happening to the windows, once the end user got a hold of them and how they were looking at them. Secondly is, think of it this way. If you were in the market for a parachute, would you buy the cheapest parachute? I don't know if I would either. So price is not always the answer. Yes, it's a component of this, but I think if you look at overall value of your product or service to the end user, to your customer, all of these things will be a factor that you want to analyze. Lastly, what is going on in your industry and the overall economy? Basically, if the industry is having rough times and the economy is adversely affecting your business or industry, it is tough to move forward. That will tend to hold you back. So you have to be careful. How do you get all this information? One way is market research. But I will caution you, you're not going to find the answer to every one of your questions. You're going to have to guesstimate on a lot of this. And that's okay. That's normal. And once you've done all this research, you'll just step back and say, is there enough here for me to make a decision whether I need to move forward or not? But do not be upset about that. And secondly, don't research for the sake of research. Always ask the question, what am I going to do with this information? How is it going to help me? I had a client once who wanted to know how many cars were made in the United States each year. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, I'm manufacturing novelty items to hang from the rearview mirror of cars. I want to be able to know how many cars there are that I can sell to. Well, I don't know if that number was going to help him. I mean, if I said 1 million or 20 million, was it going to really make a difference in his decision? So always ask that question, how is it going to help? 2 types of market research that you're going to be involved in. The first one is primary research, data gathered firsthand. This is where you're doing surveys, interviews, focus groups with potential customers to get their input, key leaders and folks in the industry, any suppliers, all this information of talking to folks about what it's going to take to succeed. Secondary research is data that's already been published. Directories, encyclopedias, newspapers, magazines, market analysis, trade journals, and things like that. This is information already published that you can read to find out how other people are viewing your industry and the economy and what you're doing. Gather a lot of information. So this is the way to find the answers to the information we were just talking about. Now, let's say you've done your feasibility analysis and you've come to the conclusion that yes, this is a viable idea. I think this idea will work. The next step is, can we turn this idea into a business? An idea by itself is nothing more than an idea. It has to have a business. So let's talk about how to go into business. There are 3 ways to go into business. You can start one, you can purchase a franchise, or you can purchase an existing business. Most people start a business. If you're going to start a business, you have the complete freedom to do as you please. Clean slate. You can create it around you the way you want to do it. You have to ask yourself, as you're considering this, do I want to start this part-time, or is this going to be a full-time job right off the bat? Very important consideration. A lot of people will start their businesses part-time in order to keep money coming into the household until they determine how profitable their business has the opportunity of becoming. Thirdly, what can you afford? Through the business plan, which is mentioned next, you will determine how much money you need to start and operate your business in order to get it to break even. And do you have that amount of money? Better yet, from my previous comments, do you have that amount of money plus some? Very important to consider. I had a client who started a hardware store. Called me up and said, I want to talk to you, got some major problems here, I need your help fast. Went to see him, walked into the store, beautiful store. All the racks were just gorgeous. Nice wooden racks, stained. He had a nice paint center over here. All the checkout stations and the cash register were also all lined up. Signage was everywhere. Gorgeous. Looked around, said, okay, looks great. When's the inventory coming? He said, that's my problem. I ran out of money. I don't have enough money to buy the inventory. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'm telling you, I have no more money. I cannot buy a single shovel. There's nothing here I can put on the shelves. What am I going to do? That was a tough situation. Don't let that happen to you. If that person had written the business plan, he would have had a better idea how much money it was going to take to get the business up and running and reach break even. Don't let this happen to you. Okay, second way, purchase a franchise. A lot of people will purchase franchise. One reason, and the main reason, is because it has proven products or service and a proven business model. The franchise is out there, it's operating and making money. Okay. How do you know it's making money? Maybe it's not. You can talk to existing franchise owners. You can ask them, what was it like to start the business? How are you doing? How much money did it take you? If you had to do it all over again, would you do it? Are you expanding? If you were me, knowing where I'm thinking about opening up my franchise, do you think it's a good idea? Would you do it? It gives people a lot of comfort to be able to talk to people already in the business. Because a franchise is already established and up and running, you may not need industry experience. In most cases, they will train you on how to run the business. So that's an area that might be to your advantage. And again, what can you afford? Only are you going to have the startup costs to start the business, you also have the franchise fees to pay in order to be trained on how to operate the business, and then ongoing fees that have to go to the franchisor. So you have to take that into account when you do your analysis. The third way to start a business is buy an existing one. An existing business could be a franchise that's up and running in your area. You have a little more background to go on in making your decision. You'd like to know, why is the company for sale? I'd like to know that. Very important. What is the condition of the company? Is this the type of sale where the owner has not really been putting much work into the company, and so it started to go down and you're going to have to build it back up? Is this a situation where the company is experiencing competition like it didn't have before? What is going on? Financial records. As I mentioned earlier, it's the financial records that give you an indication of what's going on inside the company. Without financial records, it is extremely difficult to understand how the company is performing. So that is a must. And when you ask for financial records, you start with the financial records that the company has generated and the tax returns for that company. That's the starting point. If you're unable to get those documents, it is going to be extremely difficult to determine what it is you're buying. It's like buying a house from looking at a magazine picture. That's all you've got. You can't get inside of it. Assets. You need to know what assets are going to be transferred in the sale. Inventory, equipment, the building, the real estate, It can be the accounts receivable. Also have to find out if those assets are owned by the company or they're being leased. Because you may think you're buying a copier, but you may only be buying the lease to a copier. Employees. What is the status of your employee structure? Do you have the employees needed to keep the business operating? Now, there are key employees that if you lose, then you're doomed. You have to know who's critical, who's not critical, and are they going to stay or not? What are their plans going to be once you acquire the business? I had a case one time where a client was going to buy an electrical contracting business, doing real well and so forth. And when we got down to the employee side, and he started talking about the electricians that work for the company and what their future was going to be with the company, the owner said, well, you know, they're all relatives. I don't know what they're going to do. You'll have to talk to them. Future outlook, and I mean here, future outlook of the industry, the economy, the company. Is it going to be positioned to perform well? Through the due diligence that we just mentioned, you also have to ask the question, what can you afford? Notice how this question keeps coming up each time. Money is a key issue. You have the cost of the business. Okay? One thing to realize when someone tells you the price of a business, it is not the price. It's not like you going into a store and the item is $19.95 and that's it. Business prices are negotiable. The price of a business from a purchaser's standpoint is based on how they are going to operate that business. For example, if I were going to buy an electrical contracting business, I would have one price in my mind that would work based on doing the projections and so forth. If another electrical contractor was going to acquire that business and merge them, that person would have a different price for the business based on the way they were going to operate the business. So don't think the price is the price. It is a starting point for negotiations. Well, the owner finance part of the business is called owner financing. With a lot of small businesses, owners will finance part of the business. In many cases, they have to because the buyer may not be able to get the bank financing or other financing necessary to acquire the business. So that is not an unusual situation, and you need to investigate that. How to find these businesses? Not really difficult. You got business brokers, mergers and acquisition firms that you can contact, newspaper advertisements, contacts, CPAs, attorneys, lawyers, and so forth. Getting the word out in the community that you're looking for a business and the type of business you're looking for is what's required. Those are the three ways of getting into business. As you go through this process, realize there are people out there that can help you. This is not a process to be done in isolation. Do not go and bury yourself in a cubicle or somewhere and try to work this out. Seek guidance. Very important. Two types of advisors that are out there. The informal, friends, family, other business owners, entrepreneurial organizations, and so forth. These are good sources of information. However, a major caution when going to talk to any of these folks. You have to realize that you're going to be asking people questions that you want to get honest, objective feedback. Okay, for a lot of these folks, you're not going to get it. Especially friends, family. It's not going to happen, or you have to be careful. Because when you ask a friend or a family member, do you think I have what it takes to run this business? Or any other sensitive type question. The first thing that person is going to do is consider your personal relationship with them. How is my response going to impact our personal relationship? You know, you see that on TV on these reality shows where you get somebody in front of stage and they're singing and the judges say, that's the worst singing I've ever heard. And then they all break down because they said, my friends, my relatives, everybody around me said I was the best singer out there. Same thing here. Be careful. Professional advisors, they're listed here, makes sense. You'll get more objective advice from these folks because they're not emotionally or personally engaged in the relationship with you. It is a pure business relationship. That's the end of Module 1. So where do we go from here? Feel free to download our Business Startup and Resource Guide. All of the material discussed today is in this publication. Also, don't forget to check our website for additional training and other resources that you will find helpful. If you would like to talk to one of our SBTDC counselors, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses are on the website. Good luck in your entrepreneurial endeavors.